3 men chose my house because they thought I was an easy target. Dark windows, no security cameras visible from the street, an elderly owner who probably kept cash hidden in obvious places like cookie jars and dresser drawers. David, Marcus, and Ryan had been hitting homes in this quiet neighborhood for months, systematically targeting what they assumed were defenseless retirees living alone. What they didn't know was that I'd been watching them since their 3rd robbery in this area. I'd been in the crowd when Mrs. Henderson from Maple Street had been found by her daughter, traumatized and shaking, unable to speak for 3 days after they'd ransacked her home while she hid in a closet. I'd seen the fear in old Mr. Peterson's eyes at the community meeting when he described hearing footsteps in his house at 3 in the morning. These weren't just thieves. They were predators who fed on vulnerability and fear. I'm 72 years old. To look at me, you'd see exactly what they saw. Gray hair, slight stoop in my shoulders, hands that shake just enough to suggest weakness. I've cultivated this appearance carefully over the past 2 years. But before I retired to this quiet suburban neighborhood, I spent 30 years doing work that the government will never officially acknowledge. Work that required patience, precision, and an intimate understanding of human psychology. The house I purchased 18 months ago was chosen specifically for this purpose. Corner lot, mature trees providing natural cover, neighbors on only one side who leave for their winter home in Arizona every October. The previous owners have been eager to sell after their father passed away. They never questioned why I paid cash or why I wanted to close so quickly. I spent 6 months renovating. The contractors thought I was just another paranoid old man installing excessive security. They had no idea that the walls they were reinforcing contained passages, that the soundproofing I insisted on went far beyond normal specifications, that every room had been designed with specific purposes in mind. Old man's probably asleep upstairs, David whispered while picking my back door lock with practiced efficiency. The metal tools clicked softly in the darkness. I watched him on the monitors in my actual bedroom, the one they'd never find, built into what appeared from the outside to be just an oversized storage shed in my backyard. Marcus, you check the kitchen and living room. Ryan, hit the bedroom upstairs. Let's make this quick and clean like always. I'd studied their methods extensively. David was the leader, 34 years old, 2 prior convictions for burglary that had resulted in minimal jail time. He learned to pick locks from his uncle, who'd done 15 years for armed robbery. Marcus was the muscle, 28, a former high school football player who'd blown out his knee and never recovered from losing his identity as an athlete. Ryan was the youngest at 25 and the most dangerous because he was unpredictable with a history of violence that suggested he enjoyed the fear he created. They'd hit 17 homes in the past 4 months. The police knew it was the same crew. Similar methods, same general area, always targeting elderly residents living alone. But they were careful. They wore gloves. They disabled doorbell cameras before approaching. They never took anything traceable. Just cash, small valuables, things that could be quickly sold or pawned in different cities. What made them particularly cruel was their signature. They'd leave one light on when they departed. A calling card that told the homeowner someone had been inside, had gone through their belongings, had violated their sanctuary. The psychological damage often exceeded the financial loss. Mrs. Henderson still hadn't returned to her home. She'd moved in with her daughter across town, too terrified to sleep in a house where strangers had touched everything she owned. Mr. Peterson had installed $5,000 worth of security equipment and still jumped at every sound. An 80-year-old veteran who'd survived 2 tours in Vietnam, reduced to sleeping with a baseball bat and all the lights on. I tracked David first, followed him to the pawn shop where he sold stolen jewelry, watched him meet with Marcus at a gym where they pretended to work out while actually planning their next target, observed Ryan buying equipment at a hardware store, paying cash, always careful to leave no trail. 3 weeks ago, I'd started making myself visible, walking slowly to my mailbox at the same time each day, leaving my newspaper on the porch until afternoon, suggesting someone who wasn't quite managing daily tasks efficiently, mentioning to the mail carrier, loudly enough for anyone nearby to hear, that I'd be receiving a check from my pension fund, implying I dealt in cash rather than direct deposit. I made myself exactly the kind of target they preferred. The break-in proceeded smoothly as they divided my house into separate territories. David headed confidently toward my study, already imagining the valuables he'd find. Marcus began ransacking my kitchen drawers with methodical precision. Ryan climbed the carpeted stairs toward my bedroom, his footsteps barely making a sound. I watched every movement on my monitors. 12 cameras throughout the house, hidden in smoke detectors, wall outlets, picture frames. Night vision capability showing me their faces clearly despite the darkness. Audio pickups capturing every word, every breath. This old bastard's got some seriously nice stuff down here. Marcus called out quietly while examining my collection of expensive kitchen knives displayed on magnetic strips. These blades are worth more than most people's monthly rent. We hit the jackpot tonight. Those knives had cost me nearly $3,000. German steel, perfectly balanced, sharp enough to slice through bone. I bought them specifically because I knew someone like Marcus would recognize their value, would reach for them, would try to take them. Each knife was bolted to its magnetic strip with titanium screws that required a specialized tool to remove. But he wouldn't discover that until the right moment. David was in my study now, examining the antique gun cabinet I'd positioned prominently near the window. Inside were 6 beautiful replicas of historical firearms: a Civil War-era Colt revolver, a Revolutionary War musket, a World War II Luger. Each one looked authentic because I'd paid expert craftsmen to create perfect non-functional reproductions. He was trying to open the cabinet now. The lock was designed to open easily, to make him feel successful, to make him reach inside. Ryan's confidence evaporated completely when he reached my bedroom and found it disturbingly empty. The bed, perfectly made, unslept in for what looked like weeks. Personal belongings arranged too perfectly, too deliberately. Everything felt staged, artificial. Because it was staged, this bedroom was a theater set, a carefully constructed fiction designed to tell a specific story. Guys, something's really wrong up here, he called down nervously. This place feels like a museum or a morgue. Nobody actually lives here. I'd spent weeks getting that room exactly right. The bed made with hospital corners, tight enough to bounce a quarter. Clothes in the closet arranged by color and type, too perfect for someone who actually wore them. Books on the shelf alphabetized, dust-free, obviously decorative rather than read. Then he saw the photographs carefully arranged on the nightstand. Pictures that looked unmistakably like crime scene photos. Bodies in various states. Locations he vaguely recognized from news reports about missing criminals. Those photos were real. 12 men over the past 2 years. All of them home invaders. All of them predators who'd terrorized the vulnerable. The police had found 3 of the bodies. The other 9 were still listed as missing persons. Cold cases that would never be solved because I'd been very, very careful. His voice carried new tension when he spoke again. These aren't normal family photos. We need to leave right now. But it was already too late. Everything changed dramatically when the lights came on simultaneously throughout my entire house, flooding every room with harsh fluorescent brightness. The sudden illumination was blinding after the darkness, disorienting exactly as I'd intended. "Gentlemen, welcome to my home," I announced calmly over the intercom system they hadn't noticed. My voice came from speakers hidden throughout the house, making it impossible to determine my location. "You've just entered the residence of someone who specializes in eliminating home invaders like yourselves. I've been expecting you." The moment of realization was beautiful. I'd seen it 11 times before, but it never lost its impact. The sudden understanding that they weren't predators anymore. They were prey. David dropped the antique gun he'd been trying to steal from the display case. His hands were shaking as he backed away from the cabinet. Marcus backed away slowly from the knives, suddenly seeing them as evidence rather than prizes. Ryan's discovery upstairs suddenly made terrifying, horrible sense to all of them. "This is a joke, right?" Marcus called out, trying to sound confident but failing. "Some kind of security system trying to scare us? We're leaving, old man. No harm done. The doors are locked," I informed them pleasantly. "Electronic deadbolts, reinforced steel cores. Impossible to break through without specialized equipment you don't have. The windows are similarly secured. You're not leaving until I decide you can leave." Ryan tried the bedroom window immediately. I watched him discover the steel bars that had slid into place automatically when he'd entered the room. Motion sensors throughout the house had triggered lockdown protocols the moment they'd crossed the threshold. "What do you want?" David shouted, and I could hear the fear creeping into his voice. "Money? We'll give you everything we've got. Just let us out." "I don't want your money, David," I said, and the use of his name made him freeze. "I know exactly who you are. David Chun, born March 15th, 1990. 2 convictions for burglary, 3 years total served. You live in apartment 2B at the Riverside Complex. You drive a 2015 Honda Civic, license plate JKL 4892. You have a sister in Portland you haven't spoken to in 6 years because she told you to get your life together and you didn't appreciate the advice. The silence that followed followed was profound. Marcus Williams, I continued. Ryan Kowalski, I know everything about all of you. Where you live, where you eat, who you associate with. I've been watching you for weeks, waiting for you to choose my house. You're insane, Ryan screamed. You're a crazy old man. The police are going to find you. They're going to lock you up. The police, I said thoughtfully, have been looking for whoever's been making home invaders disappear for 2 years. They have no leads, no witnesses, no evidence. Do you know why? None of them answered. Because I'm better at this than they are at investigating. Because I spent 3 decades doing work that makes your little burglary operation look like children playing dress up. Because I understand how to make people vanish without a trace. The hunt began immediately as I activated the next phase. Heavy deadbolts slid into place with mechanical precision, separating them into different sections of my house. David was trapped in the study. Marcus was isolated in the kitchen. Ryan was locked in the upstairs bedroom. Divide and conquer. Standard tactical approach. Let's play a game, I suggested. It's very simple. Each of you is in a room with potential weapons. David, you have your replica guns. Marcus, you have my kitchen knives. Ryan, you have various items in the bedroom. If any of you can find a way to defend yourself when I come for you, you might survive the night. David frantically discovered the gun cabinet contained only replicas, useless decorations. He pulled the trigger on the Colt revolver and heard only a hollow click. The firing pin was decorative metal. There was no chamber for bullets. It was as dangerous as a paperweight. Marcus found that my kitchen knives were permanently bolted to magnetic strips he couldn't remove no matter how hard he pulled. The titanium screws held firm. He tried using other utensils to pry them loose, but the mounting system was designed to withstand force far beyond what he could generate. Ryan tried desperately escaping through my bedroom window, only to find steel bars that slid into place automatically, triggered by motion sensors. He threw a lamp at the glass, but it was reinforced polycarbonate, virtually unbreakable. The lamp bounced off harmlessly. You picked the wrong house tonight, boys, I said while moving silently through hidden passages they didn't know existed behind my walls. The passages were soundproof, allowing me to move freely while listening to their growing panic. I've been waiting months for you to finally visit me. All those other houses were just practice for you. This is your final exam. I started with Marcus because he was the most physically dangerous. The passage behind the kitchen wall had a panel that opened silently. I'd oiled the hinges weakly to ensure perfect operation. He was trying to break down the door when I emerged behind him. The taser delivered 50,000 volts, dropping him instantly. His body convulsed, then went limp. I secured his hands with zip ties that had a tensile strength of 400 pounds. Then his feet. Then I dragged him into the passage and sealed the panel behind me. One down. Marcus isn't responding, David called out, his voice rising with hysteria. Marcus, answer me. Marcus is taking a nap, I informed them. He's gonna wake up somewhere very uncomfortable. Ryan, David, you're next. Would either of you like to volunteer, or should I choose? Ryan was screaming now, incoherent with fear. He'd barricaded the bedroom door with furniture, as if that would stop me. As if I hadn't designed every aspect of this house specifically for this purpose. David was trying to reason with me. Listen, we'll turn ourselves in. We'll confess to everything. Just let us go, and we'll walk straight to the police station. You'll never see us again. You're right, I agree. I'll never see you again after tonight. But not because you're going to the police. I took Ryan next. The bedroom had a false wall behind the closet. I entered while he was focused on the door he'd barricaded. The taser worked perfectly again. His body hit the floor hard. I secured him the same way I'd secure Marcus, then dragged him into the passage. 2 down. David had heard the commotion. He'd gone silent in the study, probably trying to hide, probably thinking that if he stayed quiet enough, I'd forget about him. David, I said softly, you're alone now. Your friends are gone. You're the leader, right? The one who picked the targets. The one who convinced Marcus and Ryan that robbing old people was easy money. How does it feel to be alone and scared? He was crying. I could hear it through the speakers. Quiet sobs of a man who'd finally realized the consequences of his choices. Mrs. Henderson hasn't slept through a single night since you broke into her home, I told him. She has nightmares about strangers in her house. She left behind 40 years of memories because you made her too afraid to stay. Mr. Peterson, the man who survived combat in Vietnam, jumps at shadows now because of you. You didn't just steal things, David. You stole security, peace, the feeling of being safe in your own home. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. I didn't think about it like that. No, I agree. You didn't think about it at all. That's the problem. I found him hiding hiding in the closet, exactly where I'd expected. The taser, the zip ties, the drag to the passage. 3 down. The basement was where I'd prepared everything. 3 chairs, reinforced steel, bolted to the concrete floor. Medical equipment I'd acquired carefully over months from different suppliers. Soundproofing that made the room effectively silent to the outside world. I revived them one at a time with ammonia inhalants. Watched them wake up, disoriented and terrified, secured to chairs they couldn't escape. "What are you going to do to us?" Ryan asked, his voice small and broken. "I'm going to give you a choice," I said. "The same choice you gave your victims. You can experience what they experienced. The fear, the violation, the helplessness. Or you can accept a different consequence." "What consequence?" Marcus asked. "You're going to confess. On video. Every robbery, every victim, every detail. You're going to provide evidence that will solve every case you've committed. And then you're going to disappear." "Disappear where?" David asked. "That depends on how cooperative you are." It took 6 hours. 6 hours of recording confessions, extracting details, documenting everything. They told me about robberies the police didn't even know about. They provided names of fences who bought stolen goods. They gave up everything in exchange for the hope of survival. When the sun started rising, I had everything I needed. Hours of video evidence, detailed written confessions, enough information to close dozens of cases. "What happens now?" David asked. "Now," I said, "you get to leave." The relief on their faces was profound. They actually believed me. I sedated them again, loaded them into the van I kept in my garage, drove them 200 miles to a location I'd prepared months ago. A cabin in the woods, off-grid, owned by a shell corporation that couldn't be traced to me. When they woke up, they were in a locked room with enough food and water for 3 days. A note explained their situation. They were free, but they were also being watched. If they ever committed another crime, if they ever hurt another person, the videos of their confessions would be sent to every news outlet in the state. Their faces, their names, their crimes would be public knowledge. And if they tried to come after me, if they tried to tell anyone what had happened, the videos would be released immediately along with evidence of additional crimes I'd fabricated. Evidence that would put them away for decades. They had one choice: disappear and stay disappeared. I drove home as the sun rose fully, cleaned the house methodically, removed every trace of what had happened. The passages were sealed. The equipment was stored. The house returned to its appearance as the home of a harmless elderly man. 3 days later, I sent the confession videos anonymously to the police. Not all of them, just enough to close the most serious cases. Enough to give victims like Mrs. Henderson closure. Enough to let Mr. Peterson know the men who'd terrorized him had been caught. The police found the cabin a week later, empty. David, Marcus, and Ryan had vanished completely. 3 more names added to missing persons databases. 3 more cold cases that would never be solved. I saw Mrs. Henderson at the grocery store 2 weeks later. She smiled at me, a genuine smile, the first I'd seen on her face in months. The news had reported that the burglary ring had been broken up, that the men responsible were gone. "Isn't it wonderful?" she said. "I'm thinking about moving back home. I finally feel safe again." "That's wonderful news," I told her warmly. "Everyone deserves to feel safe in their own home." She patted my hand and continued shopping. I'm still here, in my quiet house on the corner lot, still watching, still waiting, because there are always more predators. Always more people who think the elderly are easy targets. Always more home invaders who need to learn that some houses are more dangerous than they appear. The neighborhood is peaceful now. Crime has dropped significantly. Word has spread quietly through channels that criminals use that this area is off limits. That something happened to the last crew that worked these streets. That it's safer to find targets elsewhere. I'm just an old man, living alone, walking slowly to my mailbox each day. Harmless, vulnerable, easy prey, until I'm not. If you enjoyed this story, like and subscribe for more.